of Stand Up to Racism. This conference could not be more timely following the various announcements this week at the Conservative Party conference and the rise in racism following the EU referendum. Today we make history. We have today the birth of a new movement against racism in Britain. A new movement that stands up to anti-Semitism, stands up to Islamophobia, stands up to the scapegoating of immigrants and refugees, and stands up to racism wherever it rears its ugly head, and whoever the target may be. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker for this session. Please, everybody, I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Alex Kenny, who is representing the National Union of Teachers, Kevin Tory, General Secretary. Kevin Tory, General Secretary, was unable to make it today, but Alex Kenny is here representing the NUT. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sally. I'm very proud to be speaking here on behalf of the NUT. Kevin Courtney's been ill all week. He's just done a tour of the country for the last 3 weeks, attending all the party conferences, ending with 4 days with the Tories in Birmingham. Now, I'm drawing no conclusions about cause and effect there, but he's been working hard and is quite tired and unwell. But he does want to bring his greetings and the greetings of the NUT to this meeting. We're very proud to have stood alongside Unite Against Fascism and now Stand Up to Racism in your fight and in your campaign. We're very proud to have worked with Wayman Bennett and Sabi Dalu over the years in their important campaigning. I think we should give them both a round of applause. People at conferences in London. Just down the road, I've just spoken to 600 people at the Stop the War conference, and there's over 1,500 people at this. I think that should give us cause for confidence and cause for encouragement that we are on the right side. We were right when we said that their illegal foreign wars would bring a backlash here, a backlash of racism and Islamophobia in this country. We are right when we say it is government policies, whether it's home policy or foreign policy, that is going to be the breeding ground for racism, and we're right in saying that we stand up against it. We're looking at, just in terms of some of the work we're doing in the NUT, we are very concerned and working around different areas of government policy, most importantly on the prevent agenda, which is creating a toxic atmosphere within the Muslim community, against the Muslim community, and causing problems in schools. It's a situation now where it is mainstream opinion. A year ago it wasn't. It was slightly out there to be saying that prevent would have the opposite effect, would be counterproductive and lead to silencing of debate in schools. It's now mainstream opinion in the Labour Party, from the UN, from the independent advisor to the government, saying that prevent is a toxic brand which should be stopped, and that we should look at other ways of keeping our children safe, and that's something we'll keep talking about. We're also really concerned about what's come out of the Tory party conference, what I heard someone describe as a brand of national conservatism that is designed to create an othering and a suspicion about different peoples, different peoples in this country, whether they're immigrants, whether they've been here a long time. And I know you've been talking in various places about that. But some of the background to that was Nicky Morgan, just before the summer, talking about educational tourism. We have to look at whether educational tourism is affecting our schools. A really outrageous thing to say in the climate post-Brexit, that could be happening in our schools. And I don't know if people are aware, one of the things we've been trying to deal with in the last couple of weeks is the government collects figures from schools. It does a census every year about children in schools, how many there are, what ages they are, where there are Bowls classes or whatever. Some of it is very useful information. It's useful for planning. But this term, they wrote to schools and they said they want schools to collect information from every student on their country of birth and their nationality. Now, there may be good reasons for having that information as a collection if it enables you to look at resources and target planning, but to hold that information about every individual child, when we know, even if it's held by the Education Department, the Home Office seek it, just the atmosphere in which that's happened has caused real concern amongst parents and amongst teachers about whether we should be collecting that information. And this is the wrong thing for them to have done. But in some schools, in order to try and meet the deadline, they've asked teachers to ask their children where they were born and where they were from, which is a really disgraceful position for us to be in. But I just want to share with you, it shouldn't be happening, but I just want to share with you something I read today. A teacher of Year 5 students was asked to collect information, 5-year-old children, to collect information from her class about where they were born. And the answers she got were, from my mummy's tummy, in bed with my mum, in the back of the car, or in a fairy castle. I don't know if that is the 5-year-old equivalent of passive resistance, but I do love those answers. But, you know, there is a serious point to this, and one in which we should question every action by the government in this climate of racism. And I'll finish on, I know you've talked about this idea about companies identifying their foreign workers. What an atrocious idea. What on earth would the government want that for, other than for nefarious purposes? Kevin told me if he was speaking today, and so I'm going to say it on his behalf. As an employer, the NUT employs 300 people, and he said the NUT will not hand over to the government information. Solidarity from the NUT, we will continue to work with Stand Up to Racism. This is an important fight. This is a great launch of a new movement. It's going to become so important over the next few years. We stand with you in your campaigns, in your demonstrations, and everything you're trying to do. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Kevin Courtney, General Secretary of the NUT, as well. Both of them long-time activists in anti-racism and anti-fascism. It's fantastic that we have Sally Hunt to the UCU and now the NUT, because that's the future of Britain that we're talking about. And the future children are in good hands, aren't they? Next speaker is Naila Ashraf of Manchester Stand Up to Racism. She's a prominent campaigner and has been active in opposing Prevent and organising campaigns against racism, fascism, and saying refugees are welcome here. Naila.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I just want to say, we've heard today about, lots of people have congratulated Stand Up to Racism for putting on this amazing conference, and it is an absolutely amazing conference. But actually, I want to congratulate each and every one of you today who have come today together to say, actually, enough is enough, that we will no longer tolerate the racism coming from our government and the mainstream. We will stand up in unity against the racists, and that's what really today is about, standing up in solidarity, getting organised and building a movement to push back the racists once and for all. And, now more than ever, we need a movement, and I think this is an absolutely fantastic start. I don't remember ever, and I've been a campaigner for a long time now, an anti-racist campaigner. I don't ever remember coming to a conference of this size, with this diversity, with this number of, not just speakers, but actually organisations and individuals coming together to get organised, and that's absolutely fantastic. But actually, we have to be quite clear that today is just the start of something. Today, as Saba said, is a birth of a movement that we need to continue to build and strengthen for the fight ahead, because let's be quite honest, the Tories are not going to back down. They have been vicious in their attacks towards refugees and migrants, and Muslims in particular. But it's going to get worse as they start negotiating the Brexit. We know that they're going to go for us. But it's not just Brexit. It is also obviously their austerity agenda. They want to divide us. They want to weaken us, because actually, when we blame each other, we are distracted and we don't point the finger at the real problems. The Tory government, the bankers, the millionaires that want us to pay for their austerity agenda. This also, we can win. Let's be quite clear about this. You see, you look around Europe and how terrible the far right is, and actually in Britain it's quite a different picture. And actually, they like to tell us, those that think they make history, that it's because, well, we play cricket, we drink tea, we're nice, it's British values. Let's be quite clear, it's none of those things. The reason the situation in Britain is so different from what it is across Europe is because people like you in this room have stood up time and time again and called it for what it is. Let's be quite clear. For a while, and one of my most favourite moments was when Nick Griffin from the BNP lost his seat. You know, he was in Manchester. And I like to say those of us from Manchester played a hand in that, but when he crawled into the town hall having lost his seat, it was the best moment ever. It was an absolute victory for all of us that have campaigned up and down this country, and we need to continue to do that because actually, you know, a few years ago, it looked like the EDL were on the rise, that we were going to be beaten by them, but actually, yet again, we took to the streets and we said, they're Nazis. They are not welcome in our towns and cities, and we pushed them back. And we can continue to do that. Be quite clear, we can continue to do that. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you, join Stand Up to Racism if you haven't done so already. Give us your details. Get organised. Buy the packs. It's not just because we want your £10. It is about the fact that the packs will help you to go back to your towns and cities and organise, because let's be quite clear, we need a Stand Up to Racism group in every city, in every town, in every village in this country, because actually the Tories aren't going to back down. We need to beat them before they beat us. So there are key dates that we all need to get organised. Friday is important. You know, we're going to have demonstrations, vigils, events up and down the country. There'll be a national thing in London on the Saturday. We've got obviously Islamophobia Awareness Week in November. Alongside men, we want Stand Up to Racism organisations to get involved. We want teachers in schools running assemblies and raising awareness about Islamophobia. We want school students against racism. We want nurses, health workers against racism in support of refugees. We want schools, universities, workplaces to have Stand Up to Racism groups, because actually, if we get organised, we can push this back. And actually, what we need to do is huge, but we can do it. We've done it in the past, we can continue to do it again. So as I said, join Stand Up to Racism. Get organised in your town and city. If you don't know whether there's a group near that, talk to people on the Stand Up to Racism groups. Let's go away from here, ready for action. Let's get organised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nyla. The TUC in September agreed to support the UN Anti-Racism Day demonstration. We have been calling this demonstration every year since 2014. That year there were 10,000 people on the streets. In 2015 there were 15,000, and in 2016 there were 20,000. In 2017, on March the 18th, we want there to be a lot more than 25,000 people on the streets. We wouldn't have been able to do that without the support of the TUC, so I'd like you to please give a warm welcome to Gloria Mills, who is representing the TUC General Council and Executive.
Thank you very much, Sabi, and good afternoon to everyone. Friends, I'm really pleased to be here, and also to bring you greetings from the TUC, from trade unions, and also from Unison, my own union. I've only got 4 minutes, so I know that I would really need a bit longer, but I just want to focus on a key set of issues that we need to address. We are here because of the poison of racism that have polluted mainstream politics. And one of the big issues is that all politicians in this country have been too weak to challenge and to stand up and to say how they felt about this poison, the poison that came from UKIP, that has now infected and polluted public opinion. Now, we have to clear up the mess of the bullying, the eaten mess of the bullying and bigots, and this is a big issue for us. Now, I heard in the newspaper, or I read in the newspaper the other day, that Diane James was reportedly shaken up by being spat at in the street. And I thought, really? Try being black for a day, Diane. She'd know what it's it's like, what it really is like, you know, to be spat at daily in the streets. Last night I was at my constituency party in Lewisham, and I heard parents from Eastern Europe saying that they have had to tell their children not to speak their native language outside of the home because of the fear of being spat at and being attacked. That's the kind of climate we have now. The tone has changed, the mood has changed, people feel under siege in their communities, and people feel unsafe. But you know, we were here before. Because my parents, when they came here in the late 40s and in the early 50s, told me what it was like trying to walk the street under the same climate. My partner, who is Irish, told me what it's like walking the street and, you know, trying to say no dogs, no blacks, and no Irish. So it's nothing new for us. But you know what? We must not make the same mistakes by fighting the same old battles. We must learn how we have got to this stage. And we have got to this stage because we have built a very effective strategy and grassroots movement to fight racism and to oppose it in all its forms. And today I want to say thanks to the Stand Up Against Racism for the work that they have done in building this new movement across the country to do what the CRE used to do. We no longer have an effective body of community relations council, racial monitoring groups that actually fight and challenge racism in our communities. So we need to get back to that. We need to build a movement against racism, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism that welcomes refugees. But also, we need to ensure that, you know, we put in place the same mechanism, the structures of opposing racists, driving them out of our towns. Like when they came to Lewisham to march, you know, we had over 50,000 people out on the streets. We also need to ensure that, you know, we recognize that the language that are being used, we've got to challenge it. We cannot have people talking about hate crimes without actually calling it by its name. Racial hatred must be called by its name. So I just want to say, in the TUC, we passed this resolution at Congress unanimously. We're calling for united movement and a national-wide strategy. We've adopted a new campaign. We'll be opposing racism wherever it raises its ugly head, but we'll be campaigning with communities and with Stand Up to Racism and other anti-racist organizations. It will be a central plank of the work we do in standing up against racism. But we also need to have swift government action. We want prosecution for racial hatred and racial crimes. And we want to have a zero tolerance of racism, no harassment in the workplace, and we want communities to work together. So I want to say thank you all very much for your support, and let's build our support for March the 18th next year and to hold this government to account. If Theresa May's racial audit means anything, it has to mean a change in what is happening in our mainstream politics. So thank you very much.
Apologies for the slight delay and a slight change of plan. We've just got a couple of special guests that are just waiting to come on the platform.
next speaker needs very little introduction. She is the best qualified person in Britain to be the Home Secretary.
Thank you very much.
There's only one Diane Abbott.
There could be no more important time to hold this conference. There can be no more important time to give a clear message that we are going to continue to stand up to racism, stand up to anti-Semitism. Some of you may by chance have caught something on the Conservative Party conference this week. And I ask you, what sort of country is this becoming when senior politicians are talking about companies and businesses keeping lists of foreign workers? We know that post the Brexit vote is a difficult time for this country. But I say to you, however you voted in the EU referendum, I think everyone in this hall can agree that the rise in racism and racist attacks that we have seen since is utterly deplorable. I am proud to be Shadow Home Secretary. It is no small thing for somebody whose parents emigrated to this country in the 1950s to be her party spokesperson on home affairs. And I'm here to pledge to you that yes, I will work to keep Britain safe, but I will also work to uphold our civil liberties. I will also work to uphold our rights, and I will also work to fight against racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-immigrant policy. That taking this political position will be easy. I think we're going to find, weekend after weekend, smear stories in the press. But I am not put off or deterred by that. Now is the time for us all in the anti-racist movement to step up, and you can be assured that I, as your Shadow Home Secretary, will be there in the struggle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker fled war and persecution in the Congo, and she managed to become a refugee in this country because of the help of politicians that we have on this platform right now, who worked hard and tirelessly to defend refugee rights. She then went on to become a Labour councillor in Islington. Please give a very warm welcome to Councillor Micheline Longo.
My brothers and my sisters, if you remember when I spoke early on, I said, now I'm a politician because of Jeremy Corbyn. Do you remember I said when I came in this country, I never said goodbye to my parents? Do you remember when I said I arrived in this country, I faced discrimination, but Jeremy stood behind me? On my behalf. I told you I couldn't speak a language, I couldn't speak English, but he spoke English on my behalf. That is why I'm very proud to be a councillor in Jeremy constituency. As I said before, please help me. I need your help. Because I need to introduce Jeremy. He's my MP. He's my leader. Now, all together, we're going to work beyond Jeremy to make sure, I repeat, to make sure, the next Prime Minister. Jeremy can't be the next Prime Minister. We in this room, we're going to say, yes, we can. And yes, Jeremy is going to be the next Prime Minister. Thank you very much. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you very much for inviting Diane and myself to speak here today. I consider it an honour to be amongst people that I've known for many years who have stood the test of time in standing up for a decent society that drives racism out of its very midst, that have stood together to defend communities that have been under attack, that have stood together to support those who nobody else would defend. All of you know who you are, all of you know what you've done. Thank you very much for that solidarity you've shown to people who are in a vulnerable position over many decades. I thank Micheline for what she just said, and her story is the story of so many others who came from a war-torn society, came to this country and has made an incredible contribution to our society, helping young people in a difficult place, helping with youth clubs and issues like that, making a massive contribution to our society. And those newspapers that seek to denigrate anyone that's made this country their home, I urge them to look at the work of Micheline and so many thousands like her that have put so much into creating a decent, tolerant society in this country. They're the heroes that we should be applauding and welcoming. I know there are many other people speaking during today's conference and later on. I want to pay a particular thank you to Alf Dubs, who is apparently speaking a bit later on. Alf has spent his life opposing racism, standing up against anti-Semitism and any form of racism within our society. I thank Alf for all of his work, and I look forward to working with him in the future as the years go on towards, or maybe not the years, maybe the months that go on towards a general election in this country. Now, tomorrow I'm going to be in the East End. I'm going to Cable Street to commemorate those who stood up in 1936. Those that stood up against the fascists coming in. The Irish community that went to defend the Jewish community. The Jewish community that helped to defend other communities. 1936 was a turning point, an absolute turning point in the battle against fascism in Britain. That demonstration sealed the fate of the British Union of Fascists and Mosley and ended up with a massive anti-fascist movement in Britain. It was that important. And so many people went to it and made that contribution. I think we should remember them and remember the unity that helped to stop them in their tracks at that time. Because it's those points in history when people stood up to be counted, when many of the media said, oh, don't worry about Hitler, he's not really a problem. Don't worry about Oswald Mosley, he doesn't really mean what he says. Sadly, they both meant what they said. One of them did what he meant, the other one was prevented from doing what he intended to do. Take it many years later to the racism that the black and Irish communities faced in the 40s, 50s and 60s in Britain, the way in which the National Front began to grow in the 1970s. There are people here old enough to remember those of us that stood on Wood Green at Duckett's Common to try and stop the National Front marching through on St George's Day in 1977. And there were many other examples like that of people coming together in unity. Because racists always seek to divide, they always seek to blame somebody, they always fail to address the real issues that we face. I'm not the only person in this room that cannot have been anything but disgusted by the rise in hate crime over the past few years, across Europe and in Britain. Synagogues that have been daubed, mosques that have been attacked, individuals that have been spat at in the street, people that feel unsafe in a community they thought they were safe in and lived in and were happy to remain in that community. And since the Brexit vote, there's been a spike, a big spike in hate crime and racist abuse. Always seeking to blame somebody else for the problems we have. Now, it's very easy to stir up racism, very easy to start blaming a minority. So you blame a Lithuanian because of the queue at the doctor's surgery. You blame a Jamaican because there's a shortage of school places. You blame any other group you can think of for whatever the problem is. And what do? You create a whole maelstrom, a whole vortex of vile racist behaviour. And you build up an atmosphere of hatred and suspicion all around you. And you know what? At the end of all that, you've built not one house, trained not one doctor, provided one for the school. Confront this by legal means, because it is illegal, absolutely illegal. Confront it by supporting communities, but above all, confront it by reaching out to all our communities to come together. Because if you think of the great social progress that's been made in any society, anywhere in the world, it's never been made by one community wanting something at the expense of another community. It's only achieved when all communities come together to demand the same thing. The issues we face at the moment across Europe are the rise of the far right, are the ways in which countries are responding to the refugee crisis in different ways. I would simply say this: there are more displaced people around the world now than any time in recorded history. There are desperate people dying in oceans and seas around the world trying to gain a place of safety. We read about this in historical times. We read about the bravery of Jewish people fleeing from Nazi Germany and how they were supported and welcomed. And it's right we do that. It's right we understand what went on at that time. And it's right that we understand what is going on at the present time. So we do two things. One is seek a political solution to the war in Syria and the places that are causing people to flee in the first place. Fooled by Nigel Farage and the kind of poster he put up during the referendum. Those people that he put on that poster, they are farmers, they are nurses, they are teachers, they are doctors, they are engineers, they're all kinds of people. But he puts them down as a threat. Surely, somewhere, there has to be the hand of humanity, the hand of support, to reach out to those people and ensure they do get a place of safety in the meantime, whilst we try to seek a political solution to where they're coming from. That has to be the right way forward. Don't allow those people who are so desperate to be demonised in the same way that refugees over the decades have been demonised. Diane put it so well about what was said last week at the Tory party conference. I want to live in a society that understands our history, that understands the makeup of our communities, understands what humans want and want to do to support and help each other. Xenophobia will not do any of that. Racism will not do any of that. It becomes a code word for saying, well, it's okay to blame somebody else for our problems. If we're to deal with inequality, deal with housing problems, deal with unemployment issues, you do it together. You do it together by working together to ensure a fair and proper distribution of wealth and power within our society. You don't have to by minorities. And so, campaigning is very important. Sometimes campaigning can be very unpopular. And sometimes people who campaign get a lot of abuse. I don't wish to comment on the levels of abuse that are directed against some individuals, but I have personal experience of a lot of it. All I know is that eventually somebody understands that what you're saying has a lot of sense and a lot of merit in it. And when we come together, we can achieve change. When we come together in support of each other, we can achieve a great deal. Do not allow xenophobes and racists to divide us. Do not allow them to continue the problems of underfunding schools and housing and so many other things, so many children don't achieve the potential they could achieve. Think of the strength of communities together, communities supporting each other together. Think of what they can achieve when we understand that diversity is not a problem, it's a strength. When a multicultural society is not a problem, it's a strength. I want to conclude by thanking all of you for all that you do to try and ensure we do have that decent, involved, caring society. And I want to thank all of you, many who've given lots of support to other people going through difficulties at any one time in their life. We don't pass by on the other side. We support each other because that is the kind of world in which we all want to live. Thank you very much.
refugee who was welcome here and is still welcome here many years later, and he's going to be talking about that. Alf Dubs.
Well, thank you. I've never had to follow Jeremy on a platform before. What a difficult task you've given me. I told Jeremy that just now. But this is a fantastic occasion, and this is a fantastic campaign. I'm so proud and privileged to be associated with it. And I think if we go on from strength to strength, there'll be no stopping us. And that's the aim, isn't it? Right, I said earlier in the session, I'm going to repeat it. The Tory party have one policy to refugees. I can say it in 3 words: keep them out. And the trouble is that if you have that as a policy, what they're saying is not only we don't want to see anybody from Calais here, or refugees from Greece or Italy, what they're also saying is if you're here and you look like a refugee, and God knows many of us probably do look like refugees, if you look like a refugee, we don't want you here either. And that's where the hate crime comes from. And if you get people, politicians, prime ministers talking like that, the consequence is it points a finger at a lot of decent people who are leading and want to lead ordinary lives here and who are being incited against, even by neighbours. I've heard of people who've been here a long time and the neighbours have said, it's time you got out. And isn't that a shameful thing to do? Hate crime, murder. Signs on the Polish Centre in Hammersmith, where I live. These are shocking manifestations of what is happening in this country, and we've got to speak out against it. Now, some of you may have heard on the radio this morning one of UKIP people. I was quite shocked, because the question was, what about this Tory policy of having employers keep a record of places of birth of their workforce? And even, I've got no truck for UKIP. Even a UKIP person said, that's one step too far for UKIP. If it's one step too far for UKIP, it's a million steps too far for ordinary decent people. It says here, keep it short. I'm giving one more second. Okay, just very briefly. I've been involved in campaigning for child refugees to come here. And I've had some letters, not many, mostly supportive letters, people who've said something like, you know, too many of these people. I had one letter, I said it earlier, I'm going to repeat it if you don't mind, a letter to me, nearly easily emailed, and it said, you want these children to come here so that they can all become terrorists like you. Okay? And the signature was Tory. When you think of the millions of refugees, 2 million in Turkey, 1.5 million in Jordan, and 1 million in Lebanon, and people say, we can't manage to take a few thousand child refugees in this country. Isn't that shameful? Isn't that shabby? And of course we can welcome them. I'm finishing. We get bullied on here, you know. All I would say is this. Please, being here is wonderful. It makes our hearts beat faster. It makes us feel more passionate and more committed. But we've got to take that into the outside world as well, into local communities. Talk to your local councillors. Join local refugee welcome groups. Or set one up if you haven't got one. Do that, because then our time here will have been very purposefully spent. Take the message out and persuade all the people of Britain we welcome refugees in this country.
Our next speaker, I'd like you all to give a very warm welcome to the Executive Director of the Jewish Council for Racial Equality, Edie Friedman.
Can I just start by paying a really warm tribute to because he has really spearheaded for many, many months this campaign to do the right thing by refugee children. And we cannot, he's a very modest man, and he has worked tirelessly day and night for this, and we cannot let him down. And most of all, we cannot let down the children. So the best thing that we can do is to really heed his words and go out and see our MPs and see them time and time again to say that British people have a different vision than the one the current government is saying we have. And it's only going to be known if we say that loudly and clearly every single day. So please do that. Just very briefly, I've been asked to comment about what the Jewish community has been doing in terms of responding to this crisis. And all sorts of things have happened since that very iconic picture of the little boy washed up Ellen Kurdi on the beach in Turkey. So there's been a whole range of activities from synagogues opening up drop-in centers, not only for newly arrived Syrians, but also for the many asylum seekers who live in Britain in a state of destitution. We've just been involved in organizing a big interfaith event where over 200 faith leaders signed a statement saying that we as a country needed to take a fair and proportionate number of refugees to this country. We had to provide safe and legal routes to do so, as well as within Europe, and we had to have fair procedures so that people can be assessed immediately. Elf did mention that after all of his valiant efforts, no child has come under the so-called Dobbs Amendment, which is, we should be so ashamed of this, and this is the narrative that we are being seen as a country, and we have to change that. Just recently, my own organization, the Jewish Council for Racial Equality, has launched a campaign, Let the Children In, saying that the children who have relatives in Calais, relatives in the UK, should be allowed to come here. Local authorities need support in order to take care of the children, as well as those 3,000 unaccompanied children who are currently in Kent. We have to do something about the Immigration Act, which the Dobbs Amendment is part of in terms of allowing in children, and we have to step up cooperation with Greece and Italy. But can I say very quickly that all of this work will be much more effective if we do something about community cohesion, because I have great anxiety that the row about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party has meant that there's been a lot of disunity, and we have to do something about that. We have to stop prolonging the conflict on high volume on Twitter. You see that I don't use Twitter. We have to stop the great deal of infighting. We have to look at the Chakrabarti report, which says that we have to have freedom of speech, encouraging a civility of discourse which is respectful of each other's diversity and sensitivities. We have to find new mechanisms to learn how to listen to each other, and we have to stop this competition for victimhood. Muslims and Jews have to come together and look at ways of doing something about Islamophobia and anti-Semitism within our community. We let asylum seekers and refugees down, we let minority ethnic communities down, we let anti-racism down, and we let ourselves down. So I hope Stand Up to Racism can play a role in helping to achieve this cohesion, which we so desperately need. And certainly Cable Street is a great model of what can be achieved when we stand together. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. Doesn't it give us great pride to be part of the movement here today? That with Diane Abbott is the president of Stand Up to Racism, we've got Jeremy here, we have the trade union movement, Edie from the Jewish Council for Racial Equality, who is not just a speaker, she's been fundamentally involved in Stand Up to Racism from its inception. And on the platform, you have the General Secretary of the Muslim Council for Britain. fantastic. This is about cohesion. This is about fighting together against a common enemy, and that's what we've got to carry on doing. Now we're going to have a short intermission in which Wayman Bennett will be talking to you, and you will be emptying your pockets. Wayman.
I'm going to start off by saying we're not going to discriminate how you pay us today. We will take money in any form, any nationality, anything. But I want to say the reason why we need that money is because our enemies fund a racist campaign from UKIP. UKIP spent £4 million putting in division. The Conservative Party, actually the people that own the Daily Express, they have unlimited money. But what we have is solidarity and the emptying of your pockets. These things together give us the ability to make sure that we change things. And if you want to know where your money's going, it's in more badges, more posters. We want to make sure that every child in this country will wear a badge that says refugees welcome here. We want teachers, workers to have a badge that says I stand up to racism. We have the ability to do this, and we can only do this if you empty your pockets. I know that we're not rich, because if we were rich, we probably wouldn't be sitting here. But if you are rich, you can give very well as well. So please give generously, join Stand Up to Racism, and please do not stop giving. When you sign up, our money stops racists and fascists. Please fund us. I'd like to introduce Sean for now, who's going to make an announcement about the TVC.
The most important thing is keep pouring that money into those buckets. It's a brilliant day today. We've launched a movement against racism. I'd just like to announce that it was very fitting to announce that this mass movement today, that there will be, supported by the TUC, a trade union conference, national conference against racism in March. Why this is so central? There's been loads of trade unions here today. Trade unionism has always been at the heart of internationalism. It's very obvious. We're for a freedom of movement, not just for the rich, not just the multinationals. They know no boundaries. We want freedom of movement for every single working person. And we want to take that message to every workplace, to every hospital, to every office. There are 6.5 million trade unions in this country. We want to make sure we're all together, as many of those as possible, in a national conference, so we can make sure that message is put down into every workplace. Watch this space.
Thank you, Sean. We've just got three more speakers. I'll ask everyone to stay to the end, not long to go. Really important speakers. So fill the buckets, and we'll carry on. Right, so the next speaker, I'm delighted to welcome Malia Fouatia, the first Muslim president of the National Union of Students.
Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone. Thank you for coming and spending your Saturdays here. Listening to the state of things, I guess, and my hope is that you want to do something about it once you leave this room. So we meet again, another year, again, at an incredibly crucial time, a time when our government is openly attacking students, public sector workers, migrants, black people, women, disabled, LGBT+ communities, and the unemployed. Already as students, we're being hit the hardest with soaring youth unemployment, rising tuition fees, and savage cuts to education in the public sector. And this new higher education bill is set to increase fees even further and is on course to destroy the opportunities of a generation, along with the endless cuts to further education, which are a lifeline for so many of the communities that I listed just before. Across Europe, we've seen even growing racism and anti-migrant and anti-refugee sentiments across the world that really we've seen in decades. And as racism soars across Britain and the rest of Europe, it has a devastating impact on all of our communities and all of our civil liberties. Black communities are stopped, searched, spied on and harassed without just cause, and even legally killed based on suspicion. When we think of Mike Brown and others in the States, we cannot help but wonder what the experiences of black people in Britain would be if our institutionally racist police were allowed to carry guns. And recent cases like Jermaine Baker remind us that even in the UK, this is not merely a far-off possibility, but a brutal reality. And when it's called out, we're told to focus on how black people are killing each other on the streets. Not that we ever have the choice of erasing the loss and trauma that has surrounded us, but as writer Ta-Nehisi Coates puts it, to yell black on black crime is to shoot a man and then shame him for bleeding. We continue to see the police brutalising black people globally, with the Black Lives Matter movement in the US serving as an example of the struggles faced to just assert the worth of black life. And since last year, NUS joined forces with the Black Lives Matter chapters across the US to bridge global efforts and to end deaths in police custody, because the reality is our loved ones are being murdered at the hands of the state here in the UK every 6 days, and there is nothing more urgent than literally saving lives. The over-policing of our communities doesn't just stop here. The government has steadily brought the borders closer to our campuses in attacking our international students. Theresa May, our current Prime Minister, has been the face of, in many ways, of the increasingly harsh measures against migrants. And this year, a court found, under her leadership at the Home Office, she wrongfully deported over 40,000 international students from the country on the false evidence they had cheated in their English language tests. Shame. And since her ascent to PM, she has announced, as you all remember, the building of a literal wall alongside the French government in Calais to stop the people fleeing war, poverty and destruction, often caused by our own government, to enter the country in search of a new and safer life. These policies are absolutely abhorrent and stand in sharp contrast with a society built on mutual help, solidarity and support that I and so many others want to see. And no surprise that this state has also packaged one of the most racist projects yet in the so-called Counter-Terror and Security Act and the Prevent Agenda. And they've taken racialised profiling, surveillance and targeting all the way into our nurseries, our dental surgeries, our mental health care services and our classrooms. Prevent reminds us, for one thing, that the state continues to see us as suspect and innocent until proven guilty doesn't apply to black, Muslim and migrant communities. I have to quickly wrap up. So I just want to say that we have fought back and we continue to. We've taken to the streets, led demonstrations, protests, campus occupations and so much more. And when those in power refuse to listen to the people and introduce measures after measures, rendering our education inaccessible and actively destroying lives across society, we've given them a reason to pay attention, reminding ourselves that when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes our duty. Now, there's even greater need for our collective voice to challenge the inequalities that blight our communities, and as history has shown us, we're no more powerful than when we work together, based on the common experiences to overcome injustice and dismantle structural oppression. But this should not come at the cost of perpetuating any other form of oppression. Spaces that we organise in should not be given a free pass from the issues that we call out in relation to the state and its institutions. In order to build an active, effective, collective and united movement against racism, we must ensure it practices and not only preaches intersectionality, and that we don't ignore or brush away abuse under the rug. Anti-racism doesn't come at the cost of misogyny, homophobia and any other oppression. If we take on injustice must take on all of them in any space that we organise in. So just a quick plug, please join the national demonstration. There will be blocks, there will be Stand Up to Racism blocks, Black student blocks, there will be Students Not Suspects block. Whichever block you want to join, just come out on the day because there will be a strong message that we are in solidarity with international students and migrants, and the cuts to education are by no means disconnected to the rising racism and policies that blight the most vulnerable in our community. So we continue to build, fight, resist. We must do so in the spirit which Black Lives Matter articulated so beautifully, that this is not a moment, this is a movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malia. We've got two more great speakers, so please stay in your seats to hear our final speakers. I'd like to welcome our next speaker, who is a GP and a columnist. She's here representing MEND, which is Muslim Engagement and Development, which works to enhance the engagement of British Muslims, particularly in politics and the media. Our next speaker writes for the Huffington Post and The Guardian. She's rather fabulous. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Saima Iqbal.
An introduction. Now, I will be speaking in my rather strong Mancunian accent. So if anybody doesn't understand anything that I say, wave your arms wildly and I will get my colleague, Azad Ali, who I've got no idea where he's gone there, to translate. It's been an absolute pleasure to be asked to talk here today and to follow such amazing speakers. Now, we've heard the facts. We know hate crime has risen every year, year on year in the recent past. We know Islamophobia is an irrational fear towards Islam and Muslims. We know it exists on a spectrum. So you get some parts of the press demonising British Muslims, which gives the far-right confidence to go out onto the streets, carry their banners with offensive racist language or desecrate graves, and some even go on to attack individuals with fatal consequences. But what does that actually mean to somebody like me? How is it impacting my life? As a daughter, I worry that I will receive a call either from the police or from my mum to state that my dad has been attacked or killed on his way back or to the mosque. I don't want him or anyone else to be the next Mohammed Salim or Mohsen Ahmed. I am a mum to two crazy boys. Okay, they're aged 9 and 5. And Islamophobia isn't just about being verbally abused or physically attacked. It's infiltrating everyday lives for Muslims. It's starting to modify behaviour. And I'm going to give an example that I gave in the workshop earlier. Last year, on a flight, a very British flight to a very British resort abroad, my 9-year-old is afraid of flying. So as the plane takes off, I can see he's quite scared, and I turn to him and I say, he goes to mosque every weekend, I say, just say a prayer in Arabic, you'll be fine. He starts reciting an Arabic prayer out aloud, okay? I'm absolutely ashamed of myself for this, but I turn around to him and I say, no, don't say it out loud, because I'm so frightened that we'll get thrown off the plane. As a GP, I can have some of the most difficult conversations at work. I break bad news, I tell people they've got cancer, I deal with domestic violence. But at home, I have to shut down debate when my 9-year-old asks me, who are ISIS, mummy, after he hears the talk in the playground. I'm not willing to have that conversation at home, even though home is the one place that is a safe place, as I don't want a prevent referral the next day. I make sure my child doesn't read the newspapers because I know he will read words such as radical or terrorists, which are used to describe Muslims. But for how long am I going to stop him? As an aunt to 4 nieces, I worry about their future careers. Not only are Muslim women discriminated against in the job market, but they're 3 times more likely to be unemployed and looking for work than women generally. As a doctor, in Manchester, I work in quite an inner city area, of high ethnic diversity, and I wonder whether my patients are telling me everything that they should. They have families in Syria and Iraq, but I think they're holding back. And I find it insulting that I need to be told to use prevent to protect other people from harm. Safeguarding on my basic human instinct already tells me this. I have dealt with patients who have had the impact of anti-Muslim hate crime 9 years after the incident. I remember seeing a lady who I see for depression, and she came to me. She'd been on antidepressants for a few months. And I questioned her a little bit further, and it transpires her depression was actually triggered from an incident that happened 9 years ago when she was a victim of some anti-Muslim, like some racist abuse in the park with her children. Now she's agoraphobic. Now she can't leave the house. Now she has anxiety to the point where she stresses if her children go out. It's caused a strain on her marriage. The impact of one incident is immense, but I bet the perpetrator doesn't even remember the incident. I have listened this week to the Health Secretary referring to doctors who have qualified abroad, who are my colleagues that I am proud to have worked with as foreign doctors from poorer countries, whilst referring to those trained in the UK as bright British doctors. Even the NHS hasn't escaped the hateful xenophobic dialogue Brexit made possible. As a Muslim, I've been the target of racist abuse. I've met women from housewives to uni students who have been subjected to much worse. I want change to happen, but before we challenge Islamophobia, we need to raise awareness. It's time to stop just talking about it, and it's time to take positive action, and that is what today is about. So if you feel you can organise an event in your school or in your college or in your workplace or in your community to raise awareness about Islamophobia and how to challenge it, please go to the men's table outside. It's time to get organised because that's what people are afraid of. As a Muslim, I face huge challenges, but I want to make sure mine, our, and my children's civil liberties are protected to provide a safe and secure future. Today, unity has been a theme that has run throughout all the talks. And I've got to say, Muslims cannot defeat Islamophobia alone. And I have to say that today, every single one of you in this room has given me hope. Because I don't feel alone anymore. I know that together we can fight it. Because we have to work together. If you're not part of the solution, you are just part of the problem.
Thank you. Wasn't that a moving contribution? The issues we talk about, they're not issues for Muslims. They're issues for all of us. An injury to one is an injury to all. And very appropriately, the next speaker is the Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain, which is the largest umbrella body of mosques, organisations and schools within the Muslim community. And again, like other speakers today, not just here for a conference, but Harun Rashid Khan is somebody who's been involved from the beginning with Stand Up to Racism, and again, we're delighted to have him here, emphasising that unity that we've had all along. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's quite late in the day, really hard acts to follow, actually, listening to some of those speeches. I'm watching all the notes go out, 1 minute, stop, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to keep it really tight, and there's everyone sort of drifting away from their timing. I have to start, I don't think I'm going to start without saying my name is Harun Khan and I'm not the son of a bus driver. But I have to say I am the son of immigrants, and that's really poignant for me because not only am I the son of immigrants, my late father who's passed away came in the 50s. I'm born and brought up in the East End of London, only a stone's throw away from Cable Street. And watched my father, who was an activist in his time in the 70s, go into anti-racist marches against the National Front, and also even having, sort of head-on confrontation with them. When he had a business in the late 70s, early 80s in the Midlands, he had a restaurant business. I was upstairs, very young at the time, and they were, the whole restaurant was vandalised. That's how bad it was then. And so that's the environment that I grew up in. One would have hoped that 4 decades on, that there would be progress. But now, we have a hashtag in 2016 called Black Lives Matter. We really haven't moved on. What is the issue there? There is something really underlying this hatred, and nothing seems to be changing. And even if anything, the polarizing views from politicians and the media is only getting worse. And Muslims seem to be the new scapegoat. We have a long way to go. Muslims are mostly Asian and black. And even more so our sisters, as Simon mentioned, they face a triple penalty, being not only female, but black or Asian and Muslim. Made even worse by right-wing politicians who fail to speak out against Islamophobia and hatred, and compounded by the right-wing media, like The Sun and The Mail, who today were singled out by the Press Gazette from a study carried out by the European Commission for spreading this kind of hatred. So the haters seem to have found a new space on social media, giving them a safe space for anonymity, to throw their stones from, which is why we need a platform like Stand Up to Racism, to really build those alliances and stand together strong against all those who espouse hate against us. So I can say today, Sabi and the team from Stand Up to Racism, that MCB is with you all the way as we stand together against all these nonsense.
And we stand by the Muslim Council of Britain. So thank you everybody for coming here today. Thank you to all of our speakers. Oh, sorry. Sorry, my apologies. We have one final speaker here today. My apologies. I'd like to introduce Rashid Mitch from the Green Party.
Thank you very much. It's okay. It's okay. Trust me, it's okay. I don't take it personally. Because I'm with the Greens and I realise that, I've come into, this isn't entirely green territory. So it's cool, I can dig it. I'll make it really, really brief. What I'm about to say might just get me thrown out of the club. But my dad always said to me, son, speak your truth, regardless to whom or what. And so that being the case, I'm going to just give a little context here. It's a shame that so many people have left because Mr. Corbyn left and, his crew left. Because it kind of shows that sometimes we might get caught up in the personality and get sidetracked in because what I'm about to say really is to those people who are part of a certain section. As a Green, we are in agreement with what was being said here today in regards to foreign policy, in regards to the treatment of refugees and immigrants, in regards to cuts to the NHS, in regards to defending social services. We're in total agreement there. We're in total harmony, so that's really cool. And in regards to this idea of stand up to racism, can I just get an idea as to how many people here are genuinely standing up to racism and how many people here are here for personality cult and just want to be in the right place at the right time? No. Let me finish. Give me some respect. Because what I'm going to say... Can I finish, please, miss? Can I finish, please? How many people here are against racist inequality? Can I get a show of hands? Okay.
Right. So for the people who are against racist inequality, that being a symbol of racism, there was a report published by the Runnymede Trust this year that looked at racist inequality across London boroughs. It looked at 4 indicators: education, employment, health, housing. The #1 racist unequal borough in London is Lambeth, where I come from, Brixton. I'm a Brixton man. I'm gonna tell you straight. Yeah? Have a guess who controls the borough of Lambeth. What political party? Labour. It's Labour. We have, let me finish. We have 3 Labour MPs. We don't have UKIP, we don't have the BNP, we have Labour in office. The information that the Runnymede Trust report was based upon was over a 10-year period, and Labour was in government, had a majority. Guess what council came #2? Haringey. We have a Labour authority in Haringey, yes or no? I can't hear you, yes or no? Speak the truth regards to whom or what? The MPs in Haringey. The MPs in Haringey are what? Are they Labour? Are they UKIP? Blair right. Hold on. Haringey. Right? Hold on. So, let me finish. And give me the respect and let me finish. Okay, like I said, what I'm about to say might get me thrown out of the club, but my dad always said, speak the truth, son. Speak the truth. So, here we are. Today, down in Brixton, in South London, the black business sector has been destroyed by the local authority, which is Labour. Black community destroyed by Labour. My housing estate chopped in half. Half of my neighbours thrown out onto the streets. Let me finish. Half of them thrown out onto the streets. My estate was 95% black. People died. People had strokes. People went through all kinds of mental illnesses. Pressure from a Labour-controlled council. The black community divided. Unemployment in Lambeth, down in Brixton, where I'm from, for young black males, never, ever, ever dropped beneath 50%. Right now, unemployment amongst young black males in Brixton under Labour authority with 3 Labour MPs is about 70%. That's happening right now as we speak. So, I'm just very, very clear about the psychological damage that has been caused. I've been the victim of a racist attack. I've been physically attacked. I had my head busted open by a racist. I understand physical trauma, and I also understand psychological trauma. Because what has happened to my community is psychological trauma. So if Mr. Corbyn was here, I would really like him to do something about some of these issues that are happening in London as we speak right now. If we're against racism, then we will take on this battle regardless of where it manifests itself, if we genuinely are against it. Sorry, let's pause. So to conclude, if we're honest with ourselves, if we really are honest with ourselves, we will challenge this thing wherever it manifests, in whatever form it manifests, and we stand for what is right, and we stand for what is true, and we will speak our truth regardless to whom or what. Rashid needs thank you very much.
Was when you're fighting racism, when you're fighting fascism, find what unites you. Know your enemies. To isolate the racists, to isolate the fascists, and work together. And that's why I'll be there 12 o'clock tomorrow, Altab Ali Park. Altab Ali Park, remembering where a young Bangladeshi, 35 years ago, was murdered. And we went out and we united after he was murdered against racism in Tower Hamlets. And we'll be uniting tomorrow to commemorate the defeat of fascism at Cable Street. So that's what we've got to remember always. Not divide, unite.
Yeah, just to thank everyone. all of you attending the conference, all of our speakers, whatever your opinions, thank you very much. You're most welcome here. This is a broad, united movement, as Steve said, against racism. We don't care what your political views are. We don't care if you're a trade unionist, if you're Muslim, Jew, as long as we unite against racism. Please, just to say, Stand Up to Racism is not an idea. We're an organisation, we're a grassroots movement against racism. We take action against racism, so please go away, take the packs, build Stand Up to Racism, join Stand Up to Racism, and take action against racism on the ground. Thank you very much.